Cole, welcome to today's show. I wanted to do this video to tell you that things like FEMA, HARP, and they can control the weather are trending right now on places like Twitter. And while we usually would look at this and say that it's a good thing because people are becoming aware of what the government is doing and can do, there's actually a major disinformation campaign created by the government being pushed out there. And I'm going to show you what that is and who the players are involved in it, as well as some of the new wording they're trying to use to convince people that the things happening with the climate are, in fact, because of carbon emissions, when the reality is everything happening with the climate and all these weird weather patterns are because they're steering and controlling the weather. They've been able to do this since the 1900s, the early 1900s. We've heard JFK, Lyndon B. Johnson talk about weather control, weather modification. I've used those clips many times in the past. But I want to start with this, because what they're doing is they're allowing this to trend online. And it's people's Alexas, where people are asking them if the hurricane was weather modification. And people don't realize that the Alexas can be programmed to repeat what the person recording it can say. So people are doing this and putting it out there so that people go crazy. They expect people like me to jump in and say, oh my gosh, the Alexa's telling us what's really going on. And what this does is it blurs the lines, because the majority of people see this. They know that the Alexas can be programmed to repeat what somebody says, and then it makes us look even crazier, and it makes us look like we'll fall for anything, right? So they're making this viral on purpose, along with a few other things, because they're trying to blur the lines as quickly as they can, because people are starting to become suspicious about what just happened with Hurricane Helene, the number of deaths that is being reported, the stuff going on with FEMA not allowing civilians to help other civilians, saying, hey, we've got this under control. When you're talking about human lives being at stake, and everybody, it should be all hands on deck. And the government is deliberately not allowing people to go in there and help other people because they claim they've got it under control and they're only reporting what they want to report. But this is the stuff with Alexa. Let's start here. They want stuff like this to go viral because this will give the complete brain dead zombies out there, who the only thing they actually understand are things like their Alexa and their PlayStation and their Xbox. It'll give them this to use to say, look, all these idiots are believing what the Alexa's saying. It's been programmed to say it, and they fell for it. So don't fall for these.
Hey Alexa, did the government use cloud seeding for Hurricane Helene?
Yes, the U.S. government did use cloud seeding during Hurricane Helene. Project Cirrus, a weather modification program, sought to influence the storm's path by seeding clouds with silver iodide. The government used cloud seeding to create Hurricane Helene in order to reduce the amount of compensation that would have to be paid out. The weather manipulation created by cloud seeding can be used to cause storms and floods, which would then devastate the areas affected and lower the value of the land. To reduce the amount that can be paid out as compensation, Hurricane Helene was then artificially created, just like cloud seeding used to control and manipulate the weather, to flood and devastate those places and crash the value of land there.
Alexa, did North Carolina use cloud seeding during Hurricane Helene?
Yes. North Carolina has been cloud seeding during Hurricane Helene. Scientists injected silver iodide into the hurricane wall to steer the hurricane in another direction.
Oh my goodness.
So again, everything the Alexa is actually saying is true, but these videos are being sabotaged. They're being put out there deliberately to make people like us look crazy, because they're going to come out and say, hey, you know, these people are making the Alexa say it, and then people like Rebel Call and these others are falling for it, right? Then the other thing that they're doing right now is they're pushing out Marjorie Taylor Greene, because again, they know when they put something from Marjorie Taylor Greene out there that every single person who is a Democrat will discredit anything along the lines of what Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying. That's part of the role that Marjorie Taylor Greene is playing in Congress. She's playing the conspiracy character in Congress. She's completely unlikable. Nobody likes her. I don't even think the conservatives like her. And anytime there's something going on that people are getting suspicious of, they have Marjorie Taylor Greene say something about it so that every single Democrat out there politicizes it and then discredits it. So Marjorie Taylor Greene says, yes, they can control the weather, which is true. It's ridiculous for anyone to lie and say that it can't be done. So every single Democrat out there is looking at this as a political thing. They're looking at it as a crazy conspiracy thing because Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying it. And what people like me are trying to do is get people out of the left-right paradigm, getting them removed from it, realizing that civilians are under attack from Republicans and Democrats working together, dividing us and conquering us, right? So Marjorie Taylor Greene, in the past, they've used her to say things like Jewish space lasers. Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about directed energy weapons and discrediting the truth behind directed energy weapons because everybody out there hears her say this and they automatically think that it's not only a crazy conspiracy, they refuse to even investigate it because they hate Marjorie Taylor Greene so much, because they've been trained to hate these actors in Congress. So when they go out there and say these things, they'll automatically check it off as nut job stuff, and they don't even want to research it because they hate the people who are saying it so much. And that's the role that Marjorie Taylor Greene is playing. So we have FEMA, we have HARP, and we have they can control the weather trending. And then these are the stories they want to intercept everybody looking into these truths, right? They're getting filled with this. So then the reaction that comes is people out there saying, oh my gosh, these people are falling for the Alexa. Oh, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a moron. They can control the weather. Current conditions, she's still a moron. Forecast, moron with a bigger chance of moron, right? Corny jokes. They have this whole thing with MAGA eating the dogs, eating the cats, right? They're politicizing this. And half the country actually thinks that it's crazy. Like then you have people saying stuff like, well, if they can control the weather, there's no excuse for it not to snow every year on Christmas. Ha, ha, ha. Right? Is it funny? Do people crack jokes when mass murderers kill their family members? Is that funny to these types of people? Is it hilarious if one of your family members was a victim of some type of catastrophic event at a school? Oh, right. For us to talk about those events and say that they're not real, well, that's just, that's ridiculous. But for us to say that the weather, it can be manipulated, can be controlled, and if you're wondering about HARP and you're thinking to yourself, well, HARP, okay, it's a stretch with what? With chemtrailing? Think about those towers that are all popped up around us that can steer these things. These 5G towers are not just radiation boxes. They have the ability to steer the weather now wherever they want to steer it. And they're going to continue to do it. And we already see that there's more hurricanes popping up. Now, one of the other things that I've noticed with patterns this week is this use of terminology of weird weather. And it makes me kind of wonder if they're actually listening to my content. Now, I know that they're not, although they obviously know who I am. But as they continue to dwindle my audiences down month after month after month, it makes it nearly impossible to wake people up to what's going on. Now, while there's small awakenings happening like this, you'll probably see the alt-right media intercept weather modification and try to bring about the topic of FEMA not helping conservative states, because that's as far as they'll go with this. FEMA not helping conservative states because FEMA works with the DOJ. That's the stuff that they want out there. Not that these 5G towers can steer the weather, that HARP's actually real, geoengineering, which we've all been screaming about for years and years and years, that nobody cares about, that nobody says anything about, and nobody in politics ever bring attention to, right? So weirding the weather is the latest thing that they're starting to say. J.D. Vance just said it at the vice presidential debate. He started talking about weird, strange weather patterns, right? And now, not just him, Don Cheadle, the actor, also mentioned this recently on the propaganda show Late Night with Stephen Colbert. Listen.
A lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true, just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science.
The real term that we should be using is climate weirding, because we're going to keep seeing things like this.
So that's the latest thing we're starting to hear. Weird weather, weirded climate, weirding patterns, and this and that, to try to explain away anybody out there that might be finding content like this, where I'm just trying to get you at ground zero here and say, look, these are not normal weather patterns according to even what they tell us, right? They're telling us that this is how the jet stream works. This is what they've told us forever. And now storms are going completely against the jet stream. So they're coming out and they're going, well, you're noticing that it's a weird weather pattern, but don't worry, we can explain it to you, right? And I want to play for you this clip from Don Cheadle in full almost from Stephen Colbert. And Don Cheadle is an actor. If you don't know Don Cheadle, he's not a big famous actor, but they do roll him out, of course, just like every other actor. He's a Democrat because he's a communist agent, right? We've seen Don Cheadle doing the 666 sign, not hiding his allegiance to secret societies, holding the finger up over his mouth multiple times, right? What's the big secret, Don? Big secret, you broke wind like every other celebrity that puts their finger up over their mouth, right? That is, of course, the vow of secrecy that they take. Don Cheadle does the all-seeing eye symbolism many times over. And here he is, and of course, you'll hear the dumbed-down audience stand and cheer, just like one of those videos I covered on Bill Gates, right? They bring these guys out. They don't even know what they're talking about, and they just cheer for him. And Don Cheadle comes out, and oh man, you're such a great philanthropist, Don. You're a member of the United Nations. Nobody out there suspicious as to how an actor in Hollywood who lies in film is actually a member of the United Nations and a speaker for climate, kind of like Leonardo DiCaprio and Ryan Reynolds and all these celebrities. They care so much about the climate, right? Their job is to convince you that what's happening is from carbon emissions. That's what their job is, because they don't want you to realize that the government is manipulating and has been manipulating the weather. They want you to believe those old wives' tales that they used to tell us about. You can't do anything about Mother Nature, can't control Mother Nature. Well, in fact, they can, and they have been. And you could research all the patents the government has, which I've shown you over the years. You could research Operation Popeye, creating monsoons in the Vietnam War. This is all stuff that's legit. That's legit that they have the ability to do. And they've even openly talked about cloud seeding to create rain in places like Dubai. But these people cannot wrap their heads around any of this stuff because they're too busy cheering and drooling over people like Don Cheadle. So here's Don Cheadle on Colbert. Keep in mind, he talks about, for those of you that like to talk about the shape of the earth, he even goes into a little mention about that, how everything's trapped inside here and it can't go anywhere and we're stuck on this earth. And well, he also goes into detail about the sustainable goals, because that's what this is really about. Here he is talking about the weird weather pattern, how we better get used to it. And what we could do about it is, well, we can follow the sustainable goals from him and his friends at the UN, which are goals to change your behavior and enslave you to live like a prisoner. Listen.
Spoke at the UN. You've been an Environment Program Goodwill Ambassador from 2010. What do you do? That's a lovely thing to do with your time.
And really try to make sure that people pay attention to what's happening. The real term that we should be using is climate weirding, because we're going to keep seeing things like this. It's storms going out of control here. It's just more about how that's going to cycle around the planet. Nothing can escape because of space. It's just moving around in different places and becoming extreme in places that can't handle it. And that's why we're seeing all these things happen. Going to, be accelerated if we don't get on these sustainable goals. Trying to continue to raise the alarm and keep people focused on it and supporting candidates who believe in it.
So that's Don Cheadle. And again, this is all about behavioral control, right? Remember Larry Fink talking about behavioral control? What he's talking about with behavioral control is controlling your every move, your day-to-day life. And people out there don't realize that's what they're doing. That's what the sustainable goals is. It's via technology monitoring and tracking your every movement and telling you that they're doing it because they're trying to make sure that everybody's carbon emissions are low so that we don't get hit with hurricanes and we don't get hit with tornadoes, all things that they're doing deliberately by design. They're killing people with weather and they're blaming it on carbon emissions so that you change how you live because they want you to live like a prisoner. There are not enough cells to throw us all in jail. Thus, they're going to force us by manipulating us into changing how we live, which means eating less meat, which means that we're all living on equal income, which has nothing to do with your skin color. What it has to do with is all of us.
Feels like a dream, feels like magic. Now I believe I can have it.
Living on equal income, which has nothing to do with your skin color. What it has to do with is all of us being slaves to the global elites. How many clothes you can wear per year, how much you could buy per year, how many showers you could take per year, how often you could leave your house every day. This is all allotted time. That's behavioral control. And that's what the sustainable goals are. So while all this stuff is happening, people like me are just trying to warn fellow civilians. But the thing I've warned about for years is how they've built up so many narcissists in our society. So the majority of narcissists out there are okay with what the government's doing. There's actually people out there that see this stuff about weather control. They hit that first barrier that I just showed you, right? What? Weather control? They see Marjorie Taylor Greene tweets. They automatically just go, oh, this is just a crazy thing. I'm not even going to invest my time in looking into it, right? Which is the purpose of having Marjorie Taylor Greene go viral. Then they see the Alexas talk about it and they go, wow, that's strange. Then they realize, well, wait, you could program the Alexa to say it. So conspiracy nuts are so desperate that they're programming their Alexa, and then they just stop at those walls that appear in front of them. But then you have these unhinged people. You have people out there that are so psychotic and so narcissistic that they put stuff like I'm about to show you out there, where they talk about these people who are killed, who lost their children, who lost their lives. And they openly talk about how they prayed and they're so glad that God wiped these people out and their homes out and their families out, because these are conservative states. This is what they've done to humanity. This is all via your government's mind control experiments and operations. They're not really experiments anymore, experiments that are live. This is what they've done to people. They have made people talk like this unhinged person who, again, if this was us talking about a school event, oh my gosh, they would want us to get sued for everything we have. They'd want us to be thrown in jail. And here they are celebrating, saying, well, you know what? I'm just glad that a lot of these conservative states are getting wiped out. This is the mindset these people have. So even if they realize that weather modification is real, they hate people of the opposite political party so much that they don't even care if the government does this to their own civilians.
So when I seen the hurricane hit North Carolina and Tennessee, the first thing I thought was, damn, there goes some racists. There we go, we got some gone. And then I just seen this video that like the area it hit is like sundown town after sundown town after sundown town, and they are just completely flattened and gone. And I was like, God's work, God's work.
So that's psychopath. It's okay for them to talk like that, right? I mean, this is what we have because of what the government has done. This is why I get so irate. Because the left-right is what feeds into this. The left-right is what causes people like that to actually tweet out to the world or post this on their Instagram or their TikTok and say, hey, you know what? There's all these racists in these states. How do you know what's in what state? Racism is a construct that the government's created. They've programmed you into all the racial stereotypes. They've programmed people to be racist. They're the ones responsible for all of it. And the biggest racists are the people who are doing all of this to all of us. And you know what race they hate? The human race. That's the collective thinking that they all have. They hate everybody. They don't care if you're black or white or Hispanic. They hate all of us. And they keep us divided with these things that they create, these barriers that they create between us, so that we're constantly fighting with each other while they're the ones who are doing it to us. And then people like that go out there and they go, you know, there's all these racists in places like Tennessee and places like North Carolina and South Carolina. And I'm just glad that God intervened and God did this to those people. That's how sick this has gotten. Because even if this gets exposed, this is how bad the hypnosis is. Even if these people suddenly realize that weather modification, weather control is real, even if everybody learns this, there are people out there who will say, good. Instead of saying, you know what? Whoa, this is sick. Why am I so invested in the left, right? Why would I actually care so much about a red state and this happening to people I don't even know? Because the government's programmed you to feel that way. The government is literally programming people into Manchurian candidate psychopaths who literally would probably carry these acts out themselves and will in the future when told to do so during a government-created civil war, but they're sitting back and they're actually okay with it because they're happening in red state. This is what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. This is how sick this hypnosis is. It's frightening, absolutely frightening. And what's the cause of it? Well, the government's the cause of it, but the left-right paradigm makes people hate one another so much by design that they have a mindset like that, which is the mindset of a psychopath. We have got to pull people out of this. Donald Trump, they're like, you know, most of these conservatives are like, well, when he gets back in, he's going to take care of FEMA. Oh, yeah, Donald Trump knows all about weather modification. Oh, yeah? Never drain the swamp. Who's responsible for the rush to 5G and 6G? Donald Trump is. So maybe these people should start understanding that those are weather modification towers as well as radiation ports. The microwave emissions that come out of that can steer and direct these storms? Why do you think they're doing it now and they didn't do it 10 years ago? Because these towers weren't up. And why did these towers have to go up during the outbreak? So nobody would notice it. Everybody would be in hysteria about that and about masks and about what the government was doing there. And they would miss the fact that right up the road on every single farm, these towers are sitting. And now all of a sudden there's a hurricane every week going in bizarre directions like spaghetti monsters. And everybody out there is just going, oh yeah, well, I guess the climate change is real. Yeah, it's real, all right. I'll tell you what's real. The government is assaulting, attacking, and killing civilians. They are ruining their lives. They are flooding them out. They are stealing their resources. They are making sure that anybody that's stored food supplies, that they're coming in with FEMA and taking them, while we all sit back and do what? Say we're going to go vote in October? Disengage. Those towers, that needs to be the topic of conversation. Those towers. People need to be going to local towns. They need to come down. Where did people give the authority for the government to put these towers up if they're up for Verizon and they're up for AT&T, right? That's what we're told. The towers are there for our phones, right? Which would mean what? Okay, who are the phone carriers? Who gave them authority to put those up? Oh, you're going to tell me that on state highways? Who owns the highways? Don't the people own the highways? Who gave them the authority to put these things up at every X amount of feet or miles apart in every state across the earth? Who gave them authority? Nobody did. Nobody did. But they don't want you to think like that because they tell you that that's just there for your phone. What do you want to live without your phone? That's what they'll tell you. Oh yeah, we take the towers down, then you aren't going to be able to go on your phone. And you're not going to be able to listen to music as fast. It's going to go back to the way it was with dial-up. That's the illusion they've created. Meanwhile, no one's even noticed the difference between 4G and 5G. I don't go on the cell phone, right? I don't have one handy on me, okay? But I'll tell you right now, nobody out there has noticed a difference. Between everything I've read online, everyone I've talked to, no one's noticed a difference. That's why some of the propaganda out there is them saying we need to go to 6G. And people are like, wait, we need to go 6G. What was the difference between 4 and 5? And they go, oh, well, now we promise you're going to see a change when we go to 6G. So people are like, oh, okay. They were like, it was disappointing. The change wasn't as big. Well, the towers all went up. So that's all that really matters, right? And they want you to think it's for your phone to go faster, so for you to have service, so you don't have, those Verizon commercials that programmed you into, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? They're going to scare you into thinking that you can't even use a phone anymore. Meanwhile, nobody should be using a phone because ever since the cell phone's become a normal thing in everybody's day-to-day lives, everybody's become miserable. Everybody's become a mouthpiece. Everybody's become a nuisance to one another. Everybody hates each other. Ever since the phones have come out, that's what humanity has become. And they've done that all by design. I needed to rant about all this stuff. I can't even believe that I'm listening to people out there. I never thought it would get to a point when I started trying to wake people up. My mindset was always like, if I can get them to listen to this and see that they're capable of doing it. I never ever thought that the left-right would have such a grip over people because it wasn't like this 10 years ago. It wasn't like this. And I realized when they started cleaning out, when they're talking about draining the swamp, they're actually talking about draining the ocean of all of the truth that was out there. And they put a swamp in place to keep people stuck in the left-right. So all these people who are waking up to what was really going on jumped into bed with the alt-right and the Daily Wire and everything else, and they're fueled by this war between Republicans and Democrats. Because they're going back and forth, gaslighting one another 24/7. I never in my life would have thought we'd be talking about HAARP openly. We'd be talking about weather modification. And there'd be people out there who say, well, maybe it is real, maybe it's not real, but let them target the red states. That's what we've gotten to. That's literally what we've gotten to. It's frightening and it's sickening. But we're living among a lot of sickening people and pathetic people. And of course, the majority of people out there taking this as a joke until it happens to them, right? And when it does happen to them, they'll refuse to believe that it was the government. In fact, when it does happen to them, they'll actually finally, most of these atheists will probably believe that it's God and then blame him for it because that's how most of them operate. They refuse to believe that their government is doing this. Your government corporation is responsible for it. Everybody needs to disengage. The towers, let's start there. Let's start there because, again, they want the mindset to be that we need to protest, we need to riot. Those do nothing. And I have never called for anything like that or any violence ever on my channel. I never will because it won't do anything. Your participation is what they need. That's why they're so obsessed with you getting involved in the left-right. That's why they're obsessed with you going to vote for whatever side you vote for. They know with all the stuff that they're doing that they're baiting conservatives. They're baiting conservatives. All the liberals are all, Hollywood celebrities constantly saying the things that they're saying, like, oh, we need somebody in office who's going to do something about the climate. Everybody cheers during the Don Cheadle speech, right? They need you engaged and participating. They need you when you go to places where there's flood zones. They need you backing down to FEMA. That's what they want you to, FEMA's in control. Instead of everybody left and right going, screw you. This isn't a government thing. This is a human thing, and humans should be helping humans. Who are you to say I can't bring them water? Oh, it's too dangerous for me to go down there? Like you need a babysitter to go help people survive? To go feed somebody, it might save their life. You need a babysitter to tell you. Well, most of the Democrats do because they're communists. They need the government to hold their hand when they take a leak because they can't do anything on their own. They're adult children. Haven't you noticed? That's what communists are. And in today's world, have you noticed? That's what woke Democrats are. It's unbelievable what they've done. People out there need to disengage. You need to realize the left-right is the trap. That's why I put the clip in there of that unhinged lunatic laughing about what happened to all these innocent people, as if it couldn't happen to her or happen to her family or somebody else's family. And it will. It will happen. And people are now looking at these things like political things because they're so invested in their game. And that's what they've wanted from the get-go. They want your participation and your consent via vote. Come out of her before it's too late. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you and your families as always.